for joining. And we're joined as always by the boys. Steve, the cricket guy, you all right?
Evening, Matt. Good to see you.
Good to hear you. Good to see you too. And Tony, good to see you too. Tony the legend, he's here.
Yeah, I'm grand. And you're good yourselves, guys?
Yes, very
Pretty good,
very
Tony. Thanks. Pretty good, yeah.
Good. So the boys have got some updates on what's going on, some crazy stuff happening with the England cricket team. A few updates there, some stuff about the New Zealand team, and some more stuff about county stuff. So look, football's nearly over for the main season's pretty much over. It's all the cups now, and then soon enough, obviously there'll be other stuff, championship stuff, but you're not bothered about that if you're joining cricket. You're coming because it's the summer, and the summer is the time for cricket. So come join us and join us through this journey. We've got loads to talk about. There's the 100 and loads of other stuff. But for now, we'll start with the boys. So over to you, Steve.
Cheers, Mac. Thanks very much. Yeah, it's good to be here. The cricket season's about to get going. Though it's quite funny, actually, Tony. That the actual county championship itself is almost halfway through, which is a bit strange. But it's good to have a test match on the horizon. So last week we spoke a lot about the England squad, and we batted around the different permutations because they picked quite a big squad for two tests. And we were both expounding our opinions on whether or not we thought Folkes would play as wicketkeeper or whether Bracey would get a game. Well, as you probably know, Tony, the week has taken a bit of a turn, and a decision I think has been made for Chris Silverwood and Joe Root. Yeah. Poor old Ben Folkes. He had an accident. I think after the Middlesex Surrey game, in his socks, I think he slipped in the dressing room, so I read, and injured, I think, his hamstring or certainly a muscle injury, and it certainly put him out of the first two tests, the two tests against New Zealand, and it possibly has ruined his summer entirely. What a shame for him, Tony.
Terrible. I read that he's out for at least 3 months.
Oh.
And I saw Tuilagi, the England rugby centre, he's been laid off for 5 months with it. So it's certainly going to be a minimum of 3 months, which is going to rule him out of all the significant tests. And who knows what the knock-on effects will be for the Ashes tour if his stand-ins, Bracey for one, and then there's going to be Josh Buttler coming back, and then Sam Billings has been added to the squad.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's really unfortunate. Folkes has played all of his Test cricket so far away from England. Hasn't had a look in a domestic Test match, I don't think. And obviously was a shoe in to play. I mean, I think it's safe to say he would have played.
Well, I think he would have played one of the two, maybe Bracey the other. Who knows? Yeah. Or they could have even played Bracey as a batsman. So you just never know.
No, you don't. So it's a real shame.
Yes. The other thing is that a bit of a mystery to me. Ashley Giles has just said that Hamid, who has also been added to the squad, has fought his way back in and deserves the call-up. Now, I asked myself, why was he not picked in the first place? They were happy with the numbers they got. Now, therefore, the fact that he's been added to the squad, to me, means there's a query over one of the batsmen, and he's there as a standby. And I think that query has to be Dom Sibley, who had the finger injury. Yeah. And I read that he batted for his normal 2.5-hour stint for 30 or something the other day. But he did admit that there's still considerable discomfort when he fields. So it will be very interesting to see whether I think there must be not a colossal doubt, but a doubt about him. I could be wrong, and there could be somebody else in the wings who's suffering from an injury that they're keeping quiet.
Yeah,
but I can see no other reason why Hamid has been called up.
No, I thought it was interesting. So as we said last week, England picked a very big squad for a couple of domestic matches, for a couple of home tests, and was packed with fast bowlers. And we spoke about the fast bowlers last week. But losing a one wicketkeeper batsman and adding one in Sam Billings and then adding an opening batsman in Hamid as well was really curious. And I think you're right, Tony. It does speak to them perhaps having a bit of a lack of a lack of faith that one of those top three batsmen, probably Sibley, Burns, and Crawley, you would say, are most likely to be the men in possession of the shirts in the top three. That at least one of those was suffering, or maybe not looking good. And it may be Sibley. It may well be Sibley. I mean, Burns has done very well. He scored lots of runs for Surrey against Middlesex.
Got a ton the other day too.
Yeah, so I think Burns looks fine unless something has happened. Crawley's not had a wonderful season so far, I would have to say. I don't think he's been that good. Leaving aside the game that started today, and I don't know if he's batted. He scored nearly 400 runs, averaging in the low 30s, 350s in his 13 innings. So not dreadful, but you wouldn't necessarily. If he wasn't already in the team, that wouldn't kind of mark him out as somebody to get in the team.
He hasn't featured today. Kent don't appear to be featuring today.
Right.
I just want to say something, if I may, about the selection of Hamid and Ashley Giles's comment. While it's laudable because 2 or 3 years ago he was exceptionally promising and then got injured, totally lost confidence. And Giles's point is that he's come back and he scored 470 odd runs at 52.66.
Yep.
I looked more carefully at it because I've got my own pet opener who I think could well have featured. But Hamid is 474 runs. 225 of those came in one match against Worcestershire, where he got a century in both innings, one of which was not out, which is of course boosted. He got 111 and 114 not out.
Yeah.
Worcestershire have not got a bowler in the top 50 in the averages of the county championship this season. So effectively, he scored his runs against the weakest bowling attack in the county championship. So that left it the fact that he'd scored 249 runs in 8 innings. He scored just 2 50s and he averages only 31. Whereas my man, who ironically plays for Worcestershire, Libby, he scored 611 runs at an average of 67.89. And last season, I think we discussed this in a couple of weeks ago. He scored the most runs in the Bob Willis Trophy right up until the last day when Cook in the final scored a century and overtook him. He scored nearly almost 500 runs in that, and actually was selected in the PCA team of the season last year. So he's gone on this year and currently has 600. He got unfortunately run out today for 30 odd. But before that, he scored 611 at 67. And I feel for the guy because I feel if you're going to give somebody a chance, Libby would have been my choice. But of course, admirably, in a way, the selectors have been loyal to Hamid, who was capped before his injury and was regarded as a right-handed Alistair Cook, possibly,
Yeah, he was really regarded as a real find, wasn't he? I think he was I certainly got very excited when he came onto the scene. We got quite a few people watching. We'd love to hear who anyone else thinks maybe should have been called up as an opener for this England squad who's been doing well in the captaincy. You said Libby. I wondered if you were going to say Libby or if you were going to say Alex Lees, because he's also had a very good start to the season.
Yeah,
so there's a few about, and I think it's good. I mean, it's good for English cricket, isn't it, that there's players that potentially could be called into the side.
Another thing about Libby playing for Worcestershire, who had the weakest bowling attack, not, as I said, nobody in the top 50 in the bowling averages. By definition, Len, Libby has scored his runs against the good bowlers. Which is, and it was very interesting. I don't know if you read the other day, Michael Vaughan talking about the difference of batting in county cricket and batting in international cricket. He didn't use the word tests, he used international. But the point he made is that it's in fact probably tougher to bat in county championship cricket because the wickets are more unreliable and not of the same consistent standard as they are in international test cricket. So I think that we have tended, and we did this with Burns many years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, when he scored thousands of runs for Surrey and didn't get picked for England on the grounds that it was a county championship performance, and had he got the right temperament, etc., for Test cricket. And I think we missed out on certainly one season, probably 2 seasons of Burns at his very best. And there is a risk that you do that sort of thing if you ignore county form.
Yeah, conversely as well, of course, just because you're not averaging 50 or 60 in county cricket doesn't mean you're not good enough. And I think if you look back,
there are people who play very well for England and only pay moderately for their counties. Yeah,
I seem to remember that Marcus Trescothick, at the point he got first selected to play Test cricket, was averaging 33, 34 in the county championship. So, not bad, but not the kind of blistering figures that you might expect. So there we go. So the England team the England squad, I should say, is increased in size, grows like Topsy when we're not looking, Tony, in between episodes. And there's an additional player in it, even though Folkes has dropped out. We've got 2 batsmen added in. I think just to give him a bit more of a mention, we very much like Sam Billings on this show, and it's good to see him included. I believe he hasn't kept red ball cricket wicket hasn't kept wicket in the red ball game for a very, very long time. So it would be a big surprise if he came into the reckoning as a wicket keeper. But I guess if anything were to happen to Bracey between, God forbid for him, between now and the start of the Test, then Billings would be the wicket keeper batsman. But otherwise, I can't see it.
I think Billings is only there as a standby, probably for one match if Bracey was to get injured in the first Test.
Yeah,
I don't know. Depending upon who they pick, would they pick Billings as a batsman and then have him as a sort of a backup wicket keeper? I don't know. It's hard to second guess the selectors on that one.
Yeah, it's possibly. I mean, he's only played one. Not counting though. You say Kent aren't playing today. He's only played one game.
Yeah, he was away in the IPL. Came home early, but he hasn't been had the same isolation requirements as some of the others who came back.
Yeah, curious, of course, though, that he got selected as somebody who'd been at the IPL who's a batsman who can keep wicket, and Johnny Bairstow wasn't, which is perhaps an interesting take. But maybe Bairstow had been in bubbles for longer and needed a bit more time. He hasn't played any red ball cricket. At least Billings has had one game. Yeah. So, although I think Yorkshire could have done with him today, I think Yorkshire had a bit of a shocking day today with the bat, and certainly until their new young wicketkeeper came to the crease.
5-0 by Lancashire.
Yeah. Well, we'll come on to talk a bit more about the county championships in a bit, because we've done a bit of crunching of the numbers of the season so far to talk people through later on. But one other thing. So we've spoken about England, Tony, and something else to talk about. Obviously, a Test match is no good if only one team are involved. So New Zealand are in town. And I think today there may have been the start, or potentially there was talk of there being one of them training games inter squad. They've certainly brought a relatively large squad over. Lots of the big names that you'd expect to see. I published this week an article on Medium reviewing the New Zealand team across the World Test Championship and looking at their strengths and weaknesses, which folk can find, and we can make the link available after the show. It's on Medium. It's called World Test Championship Review: New Zealand Making the Most of Home Comforts. Because I think, though they're definitely a good side, they absolutely made the most of playing in home conditions over the World Test Championship, and were pretty good at winning games in their own backyard. Obviously, the big standout name, I guess, who's kind of in the last few years really getting the recognition he deserves, of course, is Kane Williamson. He's one of the big four with Root and Kohli and Smith, and I mean, I think that's arguably, there's a couple of other players, Babar Azam and Marnus Labuschagne should probably be considered in that group as well. But he's in that group of exceptional players, and I'd have to say, over the course of the World Test Championship, I think he statistically outperformed all of the rest of that group. His averaging was way up to in the 70s, and he was scoring his runs at more than 3 runs and over. So he was going quickly, and he was.
I mean, in tests, he scored over 7,000 runs at an average of over 54.
Yeah,
I mean, he's certainly in the top 4. I mean, you mentioned Labuschagne and Babazan. They're only really Johnny-come-latelys. Williamson and the other 3, Root, Smith and Kohli, they've proved it over a number of years.
They have, yeah. I suspect as the decade goes on, we'll see as players retire or slow down. We'll see
what I like about Williamson is he's done it on difficult wickets. I mean, New Zealand's not an easy place to bat in for a start. So even in your home, you talked about them having a lot of home tests. It's not an easy country to make runs in because of the conditions favour swing bowling. And it's interesting that they produce a lot of fast, medium fast and swing bowlers. And if you look at their squad, it's a bit bare in the spin bowling department. They've got a couple of they've got Santner, who is a sort of an orthodox spinner, and they've got Ajaz Patel, who is a sort of, well, he was born in Mumbai, so he knows all about spin bowling, but he qualifies for New Zealand. But he's novelty. I mean, he's only taken 22 Test wickets at an average of 33, and whereas Santner has a lot higher record than that. But they are short.
Yeah, I looked very closely at New Zealand spin actually in my article, Tony, and I looked particularly at Santner because if you'd asked me before I'd looked at it and just thinking about New Zealand cricket, who their #1 spinner was, I would have said, well, Mitch Santner. He's played in the county championship a lot. I think he's played for Worcestershire quite a few times. He's been around a while. He seems to be a fixture in the side. But actually, when I looked at his Test record, he took. So he's played. Let me see. He's played almost 40 Tests, and half of his wickets came in the first 14 innings that he bowled, or in the first 14. Yeah, in the first 14 innings he bowled in. He's now bowled in 40 innings. So he really went off at a pretty reasonable rate. He was taking wickets quite quickly when he came onto the scene. But latterly in his Test career, he's flattened out and he doesn't take wickets very regularly. And in fact, across the World Test Championship, he had a pretty poor time. He let's see, he took 14 wickets. No, let me see where I am. So no, he's had a pretty poor strike rate of up something like 171 balls per wicket or something. It was really, really poor actually, and really wasn't complementing the very, very good pace attack that New Zealand have got. And as you say, it's a good place to bowl swing bowling. Trent Boult obviously is a good bowler. Tim Southey's been around quite a while, very good bowler. Colin de Grandhomme's very good, and Kyle Jamieson, the big, what is he, 6'8",
and
all-rounder.
Wagner, you're forgetting Wagner.
Wagner. So those guys as a pace attack, absolutely superb. And arguably, particularly perhaps in New Zealand conditions, they don't always need a spinner to be top notch. In the same way that England were very, very successful in the early part of the 2000s when Ashley Giles was their spinner. Never a big spinner of the ball, never a massive wicket taker. Yeah. He wasn't a mystery spinner by any stretch of the imagination.
One end for a few overs until the ball started to reverse or the new ball was due.
So maybe that's the role they have Santner play. But I would have to say, across the World Test Championship when he played, I thought by the looks of it, Ajaz Patel looked like a more likely spinner in more helpful conditions, and I think he may well be the man that makes the New Zealand team when they line up in the first Test. It'll be interesting to see what anyone watching thinks of that. Any New Zealand fans, if there's any watching, tell us what you think about your spin bowling. It really is kind of chalk and cheese compared to the pace attack, which I think is the match for anybody's pace attack. And although they're kind of all getting older at the same time, if you like, but there's certainly still a lot of juice left in that lemon that they can squeeze, and a very, very good pace attack. On the batting as well, going back to the batting, we spoke about Williamson. I think Latham is also very good.
He's a solid bat.
Yeah.
The number. What struck me looking through the squad was the number of left-handers that they've got, and B, the number of wicket-keeper batsmen they've got. They've got about 4 or 5 wicket-keeper batsmen. I mean, there's Watling as well, and as you say, that the name escapes me now. I'm just trying to think of the other one who's a wicket keeper. Oh, Blundell, that's right. Blundell, he opens and he also keeps wicket. it would be between him, I think, Blundell and Latham, whoever will open maybe with probably, I don't know whether Nichols will open for them. He's a pretty consistent. He's got 2,000 test runs at an average of nearly 44. He scored 700s and 1050s. Then there's the old redoubtable Ross Taylor, who scored over 7,000 runs at 45 plus, and he scored 19 tons, three double hundreds, and 34 50s. So a very good a record. Then you got Grandhome, who, mind you, has suffered a bit from injuries, and he hasn't played that much. But he scored 1,180 odd runs at 37 over, and he scored 108 50s. So he's a good. They've got a good solid top order if you add Kane Williamson into that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the other player I think might make an impact and he could get selected is Will Young. So I think he's played 4 games for Durham this season, and scored nearly 300 runs, averaged just under 40, couple of hundreds in that as well. So he did pretty well, obviously in English conditions. He may well be one that they turn to open batting.
He's only played a couple of tests.
Yeah, he's not.
Only scored 48 runs, so he is really a test novice.
Yeah, in my article, I when I looked back at the numbers and the data across the World Test Championship, it really looked to me like Latham was a decent opening batsman, and they struggled to find somebody to go with him. Blundell definitely did better than Jeet Raval, who isn't in the squad, and I'm frankly not surprised. Unfortunately, he really didn't do enough, I think, to remain being selected. But it is interesting. It is an area, I think, where if they could find somebody who could bat with Latham, and maybe it's Nichols, but I think it's probably more likely, I think longer term, maybe to be Young. I'll be interested to see if they give him more of a go. So lots of interest and somebody we've mentioned in passing, but probably deserves a little bit more of a mention is BJ Watling as well. I think has he announced he's going to retire as well? I think he's announced he's going to retire
at the end of the season. He's scored nearly 4,000 runs at an average of 38. Keeps wicket, of course, and has got. I think he's got if memory serves, I think he's got the highest number of catches, oblique strokes, stumpings of any wicketkeeper playing at the Test wicketkeeper in Tests at the moment. And he's no slouch as a bat. I mean, he scored 8 tons. He scored a double hundred, and he scored 1950. So you can't certainly. It's interesting because he's a wicketkeeper batsman. Blundell is a wicketkeeper batsman.
Yeah,
and he's averaging nearly 39, and he's in 10 tests. Blundell. So it is. And then there's another fellow, Mitchell, who has only played in 4 tests. And would you believe he's averaging 75 now? I accept that comes about because he's been knocked out in a lot of innings. But nevertheless, he scored nearly 250 runs in the 4 tests, and it didn't take innings.
His average is definitely inflated by a couple of not outs. But actually, I worked it out. His runs per innings, he's scoring 56.5 runs per innings. So I mean, that's pretty good. You take that, and I think he generally comes in at number 7. So that's a very, very useful contribution.
They will be a hard team to bowl out. They bat very deep. I mean, if Statner plays, I mean, he's got an average of over 25, and he's scored a Test century and a couple of 50s. So they bat very deep. So a good squad, definitely good. I mean, let's not forget they're also in the World Test Championship final. I mean, they just edged out Australia to have the privilege of playing India in the final, and you don't do that by accident. Yes, they did well at home, but then lots of teams do well at home. That's no crime. But they're definitely a very good side against England. I make them slight favourites to get the better over the 2 tests, Tony. I have to say. If Trent Bolt was playing, I would say yes, they would be, but I think they might miss Bolt. Although Jemison has done very well in the IPL, and he's no slouch as a batsman either. He averages over 50, and he's got 36 Test wickets at 13 plus. So I mean, he's only early in his career. and he's pretty nippy. So I think, and the other thing I have to say is, I did look down the likely players, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left-hand bats likely to get into the team, and we haven't picked an off spinner.
Apart from Joe Root,
Yeah, well, okay, yes, I forgot.
Oh no, I'm joking. Yeah.
But I mean, you know, it just proves to me that the matches are going to be seam attack. I think that if a spinner comes on to bowl, he's just holding up an end. To my mind, it's going to be fast bowling and seam bowling against one another, both of them. I looked very interestingly that in when I was doing a little bit of analysis of the county championship, and 86% of the wickets in April and May are taken by seamers in the county championship. So and at the moment the forecast is a bit April, May-ish for the early part of June. So it may. I'm convinced that we're going to see
a seam-heavy match,
pace and swing bowling, and batsmen who play well against that will be required.
Whilst we've been talking, Tony, I've been able to find was indeed started today a Latham 11 versus a Williamson 11 game in Southampton today, and the day ended with Latham 11 289 for 6. Devon Conway 55, Neil Wagner 2 for 18 off 15 overs. So he's obviously hooping it about. That's very good. Yeah. So they're playing their funny inter-squad game that teams like to do these days, rather than the traditional playing the Davinia Duchess of Norfolk 11 down in Arundel. That would have been a much better opening game for their tour. But never mind, we don't seem to do that anymore. Then a nice game against combined universities just to warm them up.
Interesting that Conway scored runs. He's another left-hand bat. And he's another keeper. It's incredible the balance of their squad.
It is. Yeah. So I think New Zealand might just have the edge over 2 games. I think the England squad is in a slightly betwixt and between position where there might be a few people that are maybe less experienced or being given a try over these 2 tests, and that's fair enough. I guess there's a few of the England players are in good nick. Root's in decent nick. Ollie Pope's scored some runs. Burns, as we said, has scored some runs. Bracey's in good form, and we know he'll play. So you never know. But I fancy this New Zealand side are just a bit stronger than we might think they are, and I think they might come out on top. So it starts next week. Tony, what do you think? You think if Bolt plays, they do, and if he doesn't, they won't?
That would be my. I think Bolt is the swinger. The only thing is. They will have one eye on the final against India, and possibly with that in mind, they may not play a full team in one of the 2 tests. It depends on whether they feel that some of the IPL players have maybe played enough cricket. But having said that, there's nothing better for the confidence than to score runs or take wickets.
Absolutely.
And I think that perhaps the former is the more important, because their pace attack, even without Bolt. I mean, Wagner or I don't know how you really pronounce it. It's a bit. I was looking up his sort of modus operandi. He's rather fond of the short ball. So I think it'll be a good test for our batsman, because I'm sure he'll stick a few rib ticklers in against our batsmen.
I think he will.
Push me into a corner. No, I think England will win it.
Well, there we go. Well, that's good. I've said New Zealand, you said England, so that gives one of us the crowing rights next week or in the week after. Excellent. So, Tony, we've spoken a lot about obviously the test match that's coming up, which starts next week, and will be underway when we meet again next Thursday to do the Cricket Fan Show. Interested in folk who are watching us. There's quite a few folk watching this evening live. Let us know if you've got your predictions. If you think if you're in the Team Tony 11 or you're in the Team Steve 11, and you think England or New Zealand are going to win the first test and indeed the series. And as I say, if there's any New Zealand fans watching, let us know what you think about your spinning options and whether Santner is the man and he does an Ashley Giles job, or whether you need Ajaz Patel or somebody else to be a bit more of a danger man. But Tony, there's also lots of good county cricket going on. There's been a fair bit of it now, enough to kind of get a view as to how well the teams are working out. So for folk who aren't as familiar with the way the county championships work in this season, at the moment they're in 3 groups. Really imaginatively named Group 1, Group 2, and Group 3. And they're not divisions 1, 2, and 3 at the moment. They're kind of mixed up in terms of the standard, if you like. But there's some counties that are doing very, very well so far, and there are a few that are having, quite frankly, some shocking seasons. So what I did, Tony, is I ranked them all based on their batting performance and on their bowling performance, and looked to see how closely that was reflected in the bonus points that they'd earned this season so far. Because the bonus points can make quite a big difference to your league position, if you like, in the county championship. So again, for people that don't know, in the first 110 overs of the first innings of the match, or in the first 2 innings, if you like, first innings of each batting side, the batting side can earn batting points by scoring, runs 250 and so on, and up to 400. Within 110 overs, and the bowling side, the more wickets they take in 110 overs, the more bowling points they get, and so that makes quite a difference. And I find those points are a pretty good shorthand for how well those sections of their teams, the batting unit and the bowling unit, are performing. But I wanted to see how closely they were mirroring some of the underlying performances. So with batting, I looked at the team's runs per innings, so very simply dividing the total number of runs scored so far this season by the number of people who've been out to bat, and what I like to call the score percentage. So the percentage of innings where a batsman scored 50 or 100, and just to see how teams ranked on that. And on bowling, I took the bowling average for the team and I took the strike rate for the team, 2 pretty basic measures. So Tony, my top team so far is the team that are top of Group 1 this season, and that's Nottinghamshire. Really, really strong across both parts. They've got the second best batting points, and I make them the number 1 batting team so far. They're scoring just under 30 per innings, and they've got almost 24% of their innings are scores are 50 or 100. Which is pretty fantastic, and they're, for me, clearly the number 1 batting team. Bowling wise,
they played a game less than the likes of Essex, who are, I think, second in the table to them at the moment.
They are. Although they're second for now, I would probably say. So I think that they're a very good team. So obviously Nottinghamshire, we've spoken about Hamid. He plays for them and he scored good runs this season. They've done done pretty well with the bat.
Their big bonus is the bowler Fletcher, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fletcher, he's taken 31? Is it 31 wickets he's taken in the championship so far?
Something like that. Yeah. Let me have a look. I'll just be able to tell you. He has taken Nottinghamshire. He has taken 31 wickets. Yeah, Fletcher's 31 wickets at an average of just under 12.
Yes.
An economy rate of just 2.25 runs per over, and a strike rate, a wicket every 31, 32 balls. Yeah. So he's having a wonderful season so far. He's doing incredibly well. And yeah, they've got other
they've got Stuart Broad for starters as well.
Yeah, Broad's taken 19 wickets this season at 16.3. Similar economy rate and a strike rate of a wicket every 41 balls. So, I mean, looking at the overall team bowling performances, the average strike rate across all county championship, all teams so far, is a wicket every 59 balls. So as if you use that as a yardstick, a wicket every 32 balls for Fletcher and every 41 balls for Broad is way ahead of average. He's doing very, very well, and a very, very strong team, doing great in both departments. So I make them my best team. Funny enough, and you're not going to like this, Tony, I am using the metrics. The metrics that I looked at, I make the second best team Durham. who are currently third in Group 1 and actually behind Essex, but again have only played 6 games.
Well, I have to say they've been put in their place today by Essex. They bowled Essex out for 182, which was very good for Durham, but they're 58 for 6.
58 for 6, yeah, they are, aren't they? Yeah.
But I agree, Durham have had certainly one and two Lees, but Beddingham, who scored over 600 runs, and Roshworth, that perennial wicket taker, he's taken 32 wickets. That was before today, and I don't know how many he took today. I think he took 4 again.
He took 4 today, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's 36 wickets he's taken.
Yeah.
So,
well,
interestingly, they got there. I would say they're a very strong home team. The conditions. I mean, you and I have both been to Durham to watch Test cricket. Their conditions, I think, are very much favour the bowlers. I always thought that, which I think makes Bedlingham and Lees' performance in scoring the runs that they've scored exceptional.
Yeah, no, they've done very well, and in fact, it's interesting because they've only got the 4th highest number of batting points across all counties. So obviously, there's 18 counties, so that's not great, but their actual underlying batting performance is pretty good.
They're getting the runs, which are now the likes of Rushworth to bowl and get the wickets. So I don't know how many. Have you got the stats there for how many bowling bonus points they've got?
I do. They've got the 3rd best overall. Let me tell you, the bowling points they've got. They have got 18 bowling points, which is the 3rd best.
Yeah.
Or equal 3rd best. In terms of bowling points. So yeah, they're doing very well. Then in my kind of 3rd ranked team, another team that I think have had a good day today is Lancashire. They're pretty strong in batting. Haven't done as well on the bowling points actually, but certainly in terms of the underlying performance, I make them so far the number 1 or equal first batting team along with Nottinghamshire, and probably certainly a top half bowling team. They're top in Group 3 at the moment, and are doing pretty well. And again, good team. They've only played 6 games as well, which is quite interesting. The three kind of, if you like, top ranked teams have only played 6 games. Well, when I looked at the bonus points per game, Nottinghamshire are the number 1 ranked team for that. They've been scoring 5.5 bonus points per game on average. And Durham and Lancashire have both been scoring just under 4.8 bonus points per game so far, which is quite an interesting way to look at it.
Interesting about Lancashire, because as you say, they are having a good day today against Yorkshire. But previously, before this match, there was only actually 3 points difference between Lancashire and Yorkshire in the league, 101 to 98. And so and both only having played 6 games. So I'd be interested to see if they run through Yorkshire. Well, they have run through Yorkshire, but if they score a decent amount and manage to win the match, then they will open up quite a considerable lead in that.
Yeah, they're looking well set, aren't they? I mean, they bowled Yorkshire out for 159.
And
what, they're 90 odd for 1 at the moment. What are they there? They are 95 for 1.
95 for 1. I saw a bit of the match. Davis, he played very well. He got 50 odd before he got out. He's another one of these that gets a lot of 50s. Atherton was talking about him. He's another one of these that gets a lot of 50s, but doesn't convert them into hundreds. And that is what's holding him back from pushing for maybe a Test place.
Yeah.
He's a good bat. I mean, he opened with Jennings, and Jennings was positively pedestrian by the side of him.
I think Yorkshire are having an interesting season. They've played 6 games as well, and at the moment 2nd in Group 3, which looks a bit high to me. I don't think they're that good. And one thing that stood out to me is that their run scoring. Lyth, Brooke, and Root, who obviously Root isn't now playing, and both Lyth got scored 4 today, and Brooke scored 0. They scored up before the game that started today. They'd scored 49% of Yorkshire's runs this season, and of the 14 scores of 50 and above, the three of them were responsible for 11 of those scores. So you're that to me sounds a bit of a fragile batting lineup. I have to be honest. So I wasn't too surprised.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, they're not going to have Bairstow or Root now, really. But although having said that, once you played your first, it's 10 matches. You then break off and you don't play the second half of the season, the second section where the first two are qualified and go forward or whatever. You don't play that until it's September time.
Yeah, I know. So it's going to be a funny old season.
Like Durham and Essex, I think, will be hard to stop because Notts won't have Broad, but Essex will have all their seam attack, and Durham will have all theirs because they cope without Stokes, so that they'll carry on without Stokes. But Yorkshire, I think they'll still qualify. They're 18 points ahead of Glamorgan, having played a game less. Who are the next team, and they're not setting the world alight. They've only won one of their matches and drawn 4, and only for Carlson, who is propping up their batting. I think that and Northants are then following that, and then you've got the two tail enders in Sussex and Kent. Sussex being sustained by Robinson, who's taken 29 wickets for them, but won't be playing for them now because he'll be in the Test squad. So I can only see disaster on the horizon for Sussex.
Well, I think Sussex are a really interesting one because my underlying metrics have them as pretty much not quite bottom of the pile. Unfortunately for Kent, that goes to Kent, but certainly equal second worst with Worcestershire. But Sussex have got the second highest bonus points per game so far this season, which suggests they're starting pretty well. They've got 5th ranked in batting points and the 3rd ranked in bowling points, which speaks to Robinson's impact in the first half of a game. But overall, their general metrics are really not very good. 14th best bowling side, I make them in the 15th best batting side, which adds up to kind of 16th type. So,
if you take out Robinson's 29 wickets, I think they're going to struggle. And as for Kent, only for the old man, and I think we can't let the week go by without referring to the old man of the sea, Stevens, who scored 420 runs for them, including that staggering 190 odd, where he hit something like 13 sixes in the previous match. And he's holding them together, but they still haven't won a match. No. They're not going to lose anybody, except they're not going to gain Billings. But they're not going to lose anybody. I see them performing on a par with Sussex and the other county that I've got. Well, I've got 2 counties down the bottom. I'm sure your stats will bear this out. One is Leicestershire, who haven't won a match. And despite the fact that Lewis Hill has scored over 500 runs for them, they still not managed to get a win. And Derbyshire in Group 1 are the others. They have got Critchley, who scored 561 runs and taken 17 wickets at under 30 and did well again today, including running out my man Libby, I think. But they haven't won a match, and I can't see, and are trailing in Group 1 by 17 points behind their next team, Worcestershire.
Yeah, so, I would have to say, so Derbyshire for me, I think the interesting thing is, they're bottom of Group 1. I think Group 1's not very strong, I don't think, and they are bottom of it. But Critchley scored 22% of Derbyshire's runs from 17.5% of the balls faced, and he's taken 26% of their wickets from 22% of the balls. So Critchley's keeping their head above water, quite frankly, and probably is the difference between them being rock bottom in my table. Leicestershire, also I think Leicestershire's underlying numbers are a bit better. As you said, Hill's batting has been pretty good, and I make them the kind of mid-table for batting in terms of the metrics. Bowling, not so much. They're pretty not very strong in with the ball. But it's Worcestershire that really interests me. So Worcestershire I make as kind of worse underlying than both of those sides. Kind of 11th for batting. But the bowling, I make them the worst bowling side in the country by a mile.
This is why I cast doubt on Hamid's selection, because he scored these two centuries against them, one of which not out, and that has really made his average this season. Yes, you're right. Worcestershire's bowling attack is very poor, and in fact, if you took Libby's 611 runs out of it, their batting wouldn't be too dusty either.
It wouldn't. So their bowling, get this, Tony. They're averaging. So they're 18th for bowling, ranked in terms of their average. Their cumulative average this season is 48. Their strike rate, they're taking a wicket every 93 balls as a team. That's 24 balls worse than the 17th ranked side. So it's they're
fast adrift, aren't they?
They are, and they've bowled 806 more balls than any other side, and they've conceded 770 more runs. That's before the game started today. So they have been absolutely put to the sword when they've been in the field, and that's That's tough, and they're not even bottom of their group. They're above Derbyshire at the moment, but I rather think that Derbyshire are better.
They're only 7 points behind Warwickshire, although Warwickshire have a game in hand.
Yeah.
Another interesting stat about Worcester, and I mentioned this right at the very start when they changed the scoring system for this season, giving 8 points for a drawn match.
Yeah.
Worcestershire have drawn 5 matches.
Yeah.
Out of their 7. And so there's 40 points before you add on any bonuses. So, you know, that I can't help feeling that 8 points for a draw, whilst it does encourage what I would call solid batting, I don't think it's a fair reflection of the ability of the team. It does encourage people to try and bat long.
Yeah. If there's any county fans watching tonight, give us a shout. Let us know how you think your team's doing. If we think we're miscalling anybody here, then please let us know. I want to talk about our 2 counties as well, Tony, just very briefly. Yeah. So Essex we mentioned.
Up and ashes, are you?
No, not quite actually. Maybe with a bat in hand, but not so much with a ball. Essex, I think, are having I think they're doing well to be second in Group 1. I'm not sure they'll stay there. Harmer, your mate Harmer, he's bowled 35% of Essex's deliveries, and he's taken 35% of your wickets as well. 34 wickets at just under 25.
Didn't bowl today.
No.
When Durham are 58 for 6 or whatever, and it is the 3 pace bowlers, Porter, Cook, and I can't think of the other man, who have done the damage.
Yeah.
Siddle, the Australian. They're the ones that have done. But Essex will miss Lawrence. I mean, he scored 495 runs, second only to Wesley, who scored 501 before today. I'm not counting today in that. And of course, Lawrence wasn't playing today, and I find that interesting that Essex were bowled out for a low total. Essex will miss Lawrence, I feel. But they won't be losing any bowlers, and the conditions that they're playing in, it suits their attack. I repeat myself to a boring extent. They've got the finest spinner in the world playing for them in Harmer, and they have got a more than adequate a pace attack. With those 3 who are good swing bowlers, all of them, Porter, Siddle, and Cook. So I feel they'll hold their own.
I think it's certainly one to watch in Group 1, whether who comes out on top between Essex and Durham by the end of this phase of the season. Middlesex are the kind of, not quite the mirror of Worcestershire, but they're not too far from it. I don't have them in terms of underlying performances, in terms of metrics with the bat and with the ball. I have them not great, but 12th ranked, but certainly not rock bottom as you might expect. They are the number 1 team for bowling points so far this season, which is incredible. They've got more bowling points than anybody else so far this season, and I think that's slightly overdoing it. I think they're a good bowling side, but they're not the best. The strike rate is 52, which is not bad, and they're averaging a wicket. Their wicket average is just under 28, which is pretty good. But it's with the bat where they're having such a poor season. They're only scoring 17 runs per innings, which is dreadful, and their score percentage. We spoke about Nottinghamshire earlier. Nottinghamshire are converting more than 1 in 5, almost 1 in 4 of their innings is a 50 or 100. Middlesex, it's just 10%. Only 1 in 10 of their innings are going on to 50 or more. They are very clearly the worst batting side in the country at the moment.
And one of the other interesting, I know we can all get carried away by stats, but they are obviously not managing to bat long.
Yeah.
They have lost more matches than any other county.
Yeah.
They've lost 5 matches of their 7, which means that certainly in either innings they are not batting long because they're not batting resisting, if you like, to get a draw. They've won 1, they've drawn 1, and lost 5, and that to me tells the story when nobody else, no other county has even lost 4.
No, they've managed to contrive to lose matches this season that you would have thought they should be able to save.
8 points for a draw, you see, they're missing out by not resisting stubbornly and getting draws, which, if you'd like to be sarcastic, they're converting into defeats. That I find is an interesting statistic.
Yeah. Well, when I looked at the individual batting performances, Nick Gubbins is averaging 35. And he's the number 1 batsman in terms of averages for Middlesex, which is obviously nowhere near where you would want your top-ranked batsman to be. You'd want that to be your average batsman. And he's one of only 5 batsmen who are averaging over 20.
Yeah.
And that's the problem for Middlesex. I don't think they can be this off a cliff bad for all season. I just don't think that's a true reflection of the side, and I think they will be better than that when it comes on.
Admirably loyal of you, Steve.
Yeah, well, I think so. So there's a few other interesting things. I think Gloucestershire are doing well at the top of Group 2.
Very well. But will they do well without Bracey?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, I don't think they're one of the best teams, but I think they're in terms of their underlying metrics, they're kind of average, but they're managing to win games, and you can't knock that. I think Surrey are probably a better side, and their metrics certainly with the bat are very good. With the ball, they're pretty average, but I looked at Jamie Overton to see how he was doing, and he's bowled 12.5% of all of Surrey's deliveries, and he's only taken 2.5% of their wickets. So he's taken 2 wickets at 151 so far this season. He's in Mitch Santner territory, and his strike rate is a wicket every 288 balls. So, they'd be looking for a bit more from him. And again, he's a much better player than that, and I'm sure he could give them a lot more than that.
Whereas his brother has taken 36 wickets and has propelled Somerset to only a point behind Gloucestershire. And a man I've long admired, and I feel that he should have been given a chance. Tom Abel is shoring up their batting, and he scored 529 runs this season. And Somerset, I feel, okay, they will miss Overton, certainly for those tests against New Zealand. It'll be interesting to see whether he's kept on against India or not, of course. But then that doesn't matter because the county championship is not on at that time. When he comes back in it's really the New Zealand tests that he's going to be missed. And 36 wickets, I mean, it's more even than Rushworth. So they're a good team. They're a good team, and they were last year. I mean, as an Essex man, loyal to the end, we were darn lucky to beat them in the final last year. I thought that Somerset really deserved to win, but we straight home with Alistair Cook producing an innings out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, I think Somerset, for me, are the best team in Group 2. So a better side than Gloucestershire, and I wouldn't be surprised if they end up above Gloucestershire in that table. Certainly, I think should qualify for the top group in the back end of the season. Yeah, just looking at that. So I mean, I think Abel is doing really well. He's averaging 66. So he scored over 500 runs.
And that's not his first season. I mean, his last 2 seasons he's batted very well for Somerset.
Two other Toms in that always worth keeping an eye on in Somerset. Tom Banton, who's played a bit of one-day cricket for England, and I think is well regarded. He's had a pretty lean run so far. He's only scored 116 runs in 8 innings, averaging 14.5. And poor old Tom Lammonby, who's been opening the innings every game.
The wheels have completely come off him. From being on the verge of certainly of squad selection. I think he's dropped right away. He's had I don't know what his stats are. You're going to quote him?
He's 108 runs in 11 innings, averaging 12.
Oh dear.
And in that 108, he's actually got a score of 70 not out.
Oh my goodness.
That average is boosted by 2 not outs. If it's on a pure runs per innings basis, he's scoring less than 10 every time he goes out to bat. Poor guy. He's a talented player, and he'll obviously do better than that. He's had a shocking start to the season, really, with the bat, which is such a shame for him. It just goes to show when you pick players before a season started. I think I picked Lammonby as somebody who'd be worth a watch this season.
Well,
sorry about that.
A lot of experts did.
Yeah, a lot of experts and me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, including you in those experts.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, no. It'd be interesting if anyone's been watching much Somerset this season. I know lots and lots of people watch Somerset in particular online. If there's been anything particular with Lammonby, is his technique changed? Has he just been unlucky? It'd be really good to hear from some Somerset watchers to find out what they've what's up with him. Is he just one of those things and he's been unlucky? But when it gets to kind of 11 matches or 7 matches into the season, 11 innings, it's difficult to put that down entirely to luck, and it must have got in his head a bit. So anyway, we've not gone through quite all the counties, but we've gone through quite a lot of them there, Tony. So I think Notts look like a good side, and I think Durham are a good side, and Lancashire. They're probably the 3 that stand out for me at the moment. Whereas I think it's Kent and Worcestershire who probably are having the roughest season so far.
Yes, I was a shade. I can't help thinking that Essex will be there or thereabouts because of their bowling, and usually they find somebody to score runs at crucial times to get them into winning positions. But I feel that Somerset will be hard to resist. Lancashire, I think, will be hard to resist because they're not going to lose players in the test. I noticed that I think Livingstone was down to bat 6 today. Livingston. So, I mean, that gives you an idea of the strength of Lancashire's batting if he's batting at 6.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I feel that if I had to put my money on a team, could kiss of death, it would be on Lancashire.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I think they're a very good side. Very good side. Excellent stuff. Well, there you go, Mac. We've brought you back up to date with the county championship. I know you're more of a white ball pajama cricket fan than a county championship fan, but this is the breeding ground for test players, and there's a few people having some good seasons and knocking on the door. Who knows? Maybe Tony's early call on Jake Libby this season we might see a test called up for him, even though Worcestershire having a poor season.
Yeah.
But there you go, Mac.
Thank you so much, boys. Thank you. Go for it.
I was just going to say, so this time next week, the test match will be 2 days in, so we'll probably have seen both sides at least start to have a bat. If obviously somebody could be batting for 2 whole days, but it's unlikely with those bowling attacks. So we should have seen both sides bat, and we'll begin to see how the game's shaping up, and we can check in on that next week and look forward to talking about some live cricket. I'll be camped in front of my TV, Tony. I don't know about you, making sure that I can't be at Lord's, but I will be there in spirit.
Yes. Subject to the whims of my other half, I shall be doing my best.
That goes without saying. So I'll probably be tweeting as much as I can on our Twitter account at SFTV_Cricket. Just chipping in my 2 penneth during the game if anyone's interested in following that, and please follow me back on that and tell me what you think too, because it's always good to hear what we're the voice of cricket fans. It's good to hear what cricket fans have got to say.
What was the title of your New Zealand article again, Steve?
It's World Test Championship Review, New Zealand, making the most of home comforts, and that's available on medium.com. If you search for it there, you'll find it. I'm sure Matt can put a link in the show notes as well if anyone's interested.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, boys. And that was brilliant. Thank you for your analysis on everything that you've talked about, from the England team, New Zealand, county cricket. Very thorough. I love it. And I'm sure the people watching loved it as well. And as I said at the top of the show, we've obviously the football season come to an end. A few little bits left to tie up, small match of Champions League final and all those type of things. That we're moving into the cricket season. It's the cricket time. And these are the best boys to get you there. Steve, the cricket guy, and Tony, the legend. Just having a little drink to get back in strength. Thank you for that
present. I can assure you it's water.
Okay, good. That's always good. Good to keep you on point. But look, thank you for all the people who joined tonight. It's been fantastic. And join us again. We're here, listen, every Thursday, 8 p.m. English time, GMT. So we'll be here 8 p.m. throughout the cricket season. So join us, like Steve's already alluded to. We shall be talking, or the boys will be talking mainly about, obviously, the first test and anything else that's happening in the world of cricket. So join us. Thank you for everybody who's watched us today live. Thank you for anybody who's watched us after being live. And thank you for anybody who's listened to this. I know it goes on Spotify and other channels as well. So thank you for anybody listening. Leave your comments, leave your thoughts on everything we've talked about. And also don't forget, ultimately, to follow Steve. Steve's done some great work, some incredible analysis. I don't know how he gets time to do this stuff. It's incredible. But follow him on Twitter, at SFTV, as in Sports Fans TV, at SFTV_cricket. So again, at SFTV_cricket. And have a look at his articles. You've done a few articles, haven't you, Steve, on Medium?
There's a few.
Medium is the place.
Yeah. Articles on England, Australia, New Zealand, and India's World Test Championship, and lots of original one-off data crunching in there that people might enjoy. And there's also a preview of the IPL, which sadly we can't see how that's going to pan out, but there's some interesting stuff in there as well.
Yeah, and is there a handle for the Medium, or is it just looking for the article?
Have you actually got Yeah, I think if you look up SFTV Cricket, I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Okay.
At SFTV. Yeah, it's at SFTV-Cricket-Steve.
Brilliant, excellent. So that, again, I'll put that in the show notes for people who are listening and people who are watching. So thanks once again. Thank you for watching. Well, like I said, we'll be here every Thursday. Come join us. Leave your comments, even if you don't leave comments now. Leave them after. Let us know your thoughts. We can talk about it. We'd love to talk about it and talk to you, the fans of cricket, about what's been happening in the week and your thoughts on what we've talked about. So watch the show. Keep joining. We love you. Thank you so much for joining. So thanks for everything, boys. Thanks, Steve.
Cheers, mate. See you, mate.
Thanks. And thanks, Tony. Thanks for everything.
No problem.
Cheers. And this is Max signing off. And this is